The river was quiet that morning, its waters glistening under the first rays of the sun. Fishermen cast their nets, children played by the shallow banks, and women sang as they washed clothes. But then, a boy's sharp cry broke the calm. Something strange had washed ashore. It wasn't a fish or driftwood or even the usual calabash that sometimes floated from upstream. No, this was different. It was a drum. Not just any drum, but one carved with markings no villager could understand. Its surface was dark, polished, and strangely untouched by water, though it had come from the river. People gathered quickly, whispering in fear. "Leave it," one elder warned. "This drum carries the scent of the ancestors, or perhaps something darker." But as the crowd argued, one pair of eyes lingered on it longer than anyone else's. The eyes of a curious young man named Kojo. He didn't know it yet, but the moment he touched that drum, nothing in the village, or in his life, would ever remain the same. The elders ordered the drum to be taken away, far from the village, but Kojo could not stop thinking about it. That night, when everyone else slept, he crept back to the riverbank. The moon was full, its silver light glinting off the carved patterns of the drum. He crouched low, his heart pounding. "What harm can it do?" he whispered to himself. "It's only a drum." Kojo reached out and placed his hands on the skin. The moment his fingers brushed against it, a chill raced through his body. The air around him grew heavy, and the trees seemed to whisper his name. Still, curiosity pushed him further. He lifted the drum, surprised at how light it was, almost as if it wanted to be carried. With trembling hands, he struck it once. Boom. The sound wasn't like any drum beat he had ever heard. It didn't echo outward, it sank deep into his chest, rattling his bones. The river rippled unnaturally, though no stone had been thrown. The ground beneath him seemed to vibrate. Kojo froze. He knew he should stop, but something inside urged him on. He struck it again. Boom. This time, shadows rose along the river's edge, dancing like spirits. The night grew colder, and the moonlight dimmed, as though the sky itself was afraid. And then a voice whispered, not from outside, but from inside his head. "You have awakened me." Kojo stumbled back, the drum nearly slipping from his hands. His breath came in short gasps. "Who's there?" he whispered, glancing around the riverbank. But there was no one, only the voice that seemed to echo from within him. "You have played the drum of the forgotten," the voice said, "and now you are bound." Kojo shook his head. No, this is just my mind playing tricks." He dropped the drum onto the ground, but instead of falling, it floated, hovering just above the earth, glowing faintly with a dull red light. The boy's legs trembled, yet something compelled him to stay. He couldn't run. The voice continued. "Long ago, this drum was made with the skin of betrayal, the wood of cursed trees, and the blood of the innocent. Its beat awakens the spirits who hunger for life once lost." Kojo clutched his chest as his heart thudded painfully. He wanted to scream, to call for help, but no sound came out. The spirits along the river's edge grew taller, their forms more defined. Some wore tattered robes, others had hollow eyes that glowed like dying embers. One of them stepped forward and hissed, "Play again, boy, and let us through." Kojo's fingers itched to strike the drum once more, even as terror burned in his veins. The cursed power had begun to sink its claws into him. Kojo squeezed his eyes shut, fighting the urge. His grandmother's words from long ago whispered in his memory. Not every gift from the river is meant for human hands. Some are traps, dressed in beauty. But the drum pulsed, its glow sinking with his heartbeat, as if it were alive. His fingers twitched toward it. Sweat dripped down his face. "No," he shouted, forcing his hands back. "I won't." The spirits hissed in unison, their shapes twisting with anger. The tallest among them stepped forward, its voice deep and cold. "You think you have a choice, boy? Once the drum chooses, there is no turning back. If you resist, it will consume you until nothing remains but an empty shell." Kojo staggered backward. The river rippled violently, though no wind blew. The water rose, forming hands that reached toward him. He stumbled, tripped on a rock, and fell hard to the ground. The drum floated closer, circling him like a predator. Its whispers crawled into his ears. "One beat is all it takes. One beat to end your fear. One beat to make you powerful." Kojo's chest heaved. A terrible question clawed at his mind. If I play, will I control it or will it control me? The spirits leaned forward, waiting. The whole forest seemed to hold its breath. And then, with trembling hands, Kojo lifted the drum. Kojo's palms were slick with sweat as he gripped the drum. The skin was cold, far colder than anything touched by the river should have been. His heart pounded like a war horn, louder than his own thoughts. Then he struck it. Boom! The sound wasn't like any drum he'd ever heard in the village. It was deeper, darker, as if the earth itself had groaned. The ground beneath him trembled, and the trees shuddered as though bowing. Birds scattered from their nests in panic. The spirits roared, their forms flaring with strange, fiery light. "It has begun," they cried, their voices overlapping like thunder. Kojo gasped as a surge of energy tore through him. His eyes burned, glowing faintly gold. He staggered to his feet, but when he tried to let go of the drum, it clung to his hands as if fused to his skin. "What have I done?" he whispered. Behind him, the river boiled. From its depths rose a massive figure, towering and cloaked in water and shadow. Its eyes were hollow but blazed with red fire. "Child of men," it boomed, "you have awakened me. You shall carry my song, or you shall perish." Kojo's knees nearly buckled. The villagers' laughter and games felt like a dream now, far away. The cursed drum had called something far older, far darker than he could ever have imagined. And deep inside him, a terrifying truth grew clear. He was no longer just Kojo, the boy who fished in the river. He had become something else. The next morning, the village was restless. Women drew water from the river, but whispered nervously about how it hissed and steamed when touched. Fishermen complained that no fish were caught in their nets. Even the goats refused to drink from the riverbank. And Kojo? He sat silently at the edge of the compound, the drum beside him like a shadow that refused to leave. His eyes, once warm and lively, now carried a faint golden glow when the sun hit them. Children who ran too close to him shrieked and darted away, saying he smelled of smoke and storm. His mother, Adisa, approached him with a trembling hand. "Kojo, my son, what did you do by the river last night?" Kojo's throat tightened. He wanted to lie, to say he had only fished, but his hands betrayed him. The skin on his palms was darkened, almost charred, as though fire had kissed them. Before Kojo could answer, the village elder, Nana Ose, stepped forward. His staff thumped against the earth as he studied Kojo with sharp, suspicious eyes. "Bring the drum," Nana Ose commanded. Kojo tried to resist, but his body moved on its own, lifting the drum as though it were an extension of him. The villagers gasped, covering their mouths when they saw the eerie glow seeping from its carvings. "That is no drum of man. That is the cursed phantom spoken of in the stories. The one that calls the drowned kings from the river," Nana Ose said fearfully. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Old women wailed, clutching their heads. A man spat on the ground and muttered, "Why did the spirits choose this boy? Why him?" A villager asked, confused. Kojo's chest heaved. He wanted to scream that he hadn't chosen any of this. But deep inside, the drum pulsed, alive, and a voice only he could hear whispered, "Play me again, and you will know power greater than kings." Kojo shut his eyes, trembling. The cursed drum was no longer just an object. It was inside him, tempting him, shaping him. And though fear gripped the villagers, Kojo already knew he couldn't escape it anymore. The council fire was lit that night. Elders sat in a circle, their faces carved with worry as the flames danced shadows across their wrinkled brows. The entire village gathered, eyes darting between Kojo and the cursed drum resting on the ground beside him. Nana Ose lifted his staff. "We cannot ignore this. Already, the river rejects us. The crops bend as though burdened by unseen hands. If this boy continues to keep that drum, disaster will follow." A loud murmur rose. One man shouted, "Banish him before the ancestors turn against us all." Another woman countered, "But he is only a child. Will we cast him out when it was the river that placed this fate upon him?" Kojo's mother, Adisa, knelt before the council, tears in her eyes. "Please, he is my only son. He never sought this evil. He was only curious. Must he suffer for what he did not ask for?" The crowd stirred uneasily. Kojo's fists tightened. Shame burned in his chest, but so did anger. Why did they look at him as though he was already cursed beyond saving? He wanted to shout that he could control it, that he wasn't afraid. But before he could speak, the drum let out a faint thum without being touched. The ground trembled. Sparks hissed in the fire. The villagers screamed, stumbling back. Nana Ose slammed his staff. "Enough! This drum carries the hunger of the drowned spirits. Once it bonds with a soul, that soul is never the same. The ancestors must decide. At those words, a heavy silence fell. All eyes turned to Kojo. He felt the weight of the entire village pressing on his shoulders. Then, in the stillness, the drum's voice echoed in his mind again. They fear you, Kojo, but they will bow to you. Play me, and you will never beg, never starve, never be small again. His chest heaved. The choice before him grew clearer. Obey the council and risk losing himself, or obey the drum and risk losing everyone else. The night ended with Nana Ose declaring, "Tomorrow we take the boy to the sacred grove. Let the ancestors speak. Their judgment will be final." Kojo lay awake under the stars that night, staring at the cursed drum glowing faintly beside him. For the first time, he wondered if the ancestors would see him as savior or sacrifice. The morning came heavy with mist, as though the earth itself wished to veil what was about to happen. The sacred grove lay deep within the forest, where no laughter was allowed, no idle footsteps permitted. Only priests, elders, and those chosen by fate ever entered. Kojo walked barefoot, his wrists tied with palm ropes, not as punishment, but as tradition. The cursed drum was carried behind him by two strong men, though even they trembled, for the drum seemed to hum softly with each step, as if alive. The grove opened into a clearing encircled by ancient trees whose roots coiled like snakes. At the center stood the great stone altar, blackened by centuries of sacrifices. Around it, the elders formed a circle, chanting in low tones. Nana Ose raised his staff. "Ancestors of our blood, hear us! A child has brought forth a drum from the river of shadows. We ask, is he cursed or is he chosen?" The chants grew louder. Drums of the priests answered in rhythm, summoning the unseen. The air grew thick. Even the birds in the forest went silent. Kojo shivered. He felt something stir inside him, the same dark rhythm that whispered in his mind. Suddenly, the cursed drum thudded on its own, louder than the priest's drums. Thum. The villagers gasped. Smoke rose from the stone altar, twisting upward like a hand reaching for the sky. Out of the smoke, faint figures appeared, shimmering, faceless, yet heavy with presence. The ancestors had arrived. Kojo fell to his knees, his heart pounding. Voices layered over each other spoke, not from mouths, but straight into the bones of all who stood there. This drum was not lost. It was hidden. The one who touched it has been marked. The crowd cried out in fear. Adisa clutched her chest, whispering, "Marked? Marked for what?" The smoke thickened, and the ancestors' voices deepened. "He may be our downfall or our deliverance. The choice will not be ours. It will be his." The cursed drum glowed red, pulsing like a heart. Kojo's rope bindings snapped as though cut by invisible hands. He rose slowly to his feet, the drum's whisper now thunder in his ears. "Play me, Kojo. Show them your destiny." The elders shouted, "Do not touch it." Some begged, others cursed. But Kojo's hand was already reaching out. His fingers brushed the drum's skin, and the grove shook. The moment Kojo's fingers touched the drum, the earth itself seemed to tremble. The air in the sacred grove grew sharp, filled with a ringing silence that pressed against the villagers' ears. Everyone held their breath, waiting. Then, thum! A single beat thundered from the cursed drum, louder than any mortal hand could strike. The trees shook, leaves raining down. The stone altar cracked slightly down the middle. The villagers screamed, some fleeing to the edge of the grove while others fell to the ground in prayer. Kojo's eyes were no longer the eyes of a boy. They glowed faintly, flickering with something ancient. His body straightened, and though his lips did not move, his voice came layered, deep, and booming. "You called upon the ancestors, and they have answered." The elders staggered back in terror. Nana Ose dropped his staff, his voice trembling. "Kojo, stop this madness. The drum was never meant to be played." But Kojo struck the drum again. Thum! Each beat summoned shadows from the trees, shapes of warriors long dead, their faces hidden, their spears glinting with ghostly fire. They marched silently into the clearing, surrounding the villagers. Adisa cried out, "Kojo, it's me! Listen. Don't let it take you." Her voice cracked with desperation. For a heartbeat, Kojo's glowing eyes flickered. The boy within him fought to surface, but the drum's whispers coiled tighter around his spirit. "They abandoned you, Kojo. They mocked you. Now they kneel before you." A third beat, thum. Lightning split the sky, though no storm was there. The ground opened slightly, releasing a blast of heat as if the underworld itself stirred. The ancestors' voices returned. urgent, overlapping. Enough. The boy cannot bear its power. The curse consumes him. One elder shouted, "Destroy the drum before it destroys us all." But as they rushed forward, the ghostly warriors blocked their path, spears raised. Kojo stood at the center, his small frame overshadowed by a force far too great for him, his hands trembling as he raised them to strike the drum once more. And in that instant, the entire village realized, if he beat the drum again, there might be no return. The villagers cried out as Kojo raised his hands for the final strike. The cursed drum pulsed, alive, like a beast waiting to be unleashed. The ghostly warriors closed in tighter, their fiery spears forming a cage around him. Adisa, her heart pounding, pushed through the terrified crowd. "Kojo," she screamed, tears streaking her cheeks. "You are not the curse. You are my brother, my blood." For a moment, Kojo's glowing eyes flickered, confusion, pain, then recognition. His trembling hands faltered above the drum, but the drum whispered louder in his mind, "Strike, and they will all bow to you. You will never be powerless again." Kojo gasped, torn between the voice of the curse and the voice of his sister. His knees buckled, sweat dripping down his face. He whispered hoarsely, I don't want to lose myself." Then, with a cry, he turned, not to strike the drum, but to slam his hand against the cracked stone altar. The sacred stone shattered. A blinding light erupted, and the cursed drum split in two with a deafening crack. The ghostly warriors let out one final roar before vanishing into smoke. The earth shook, then stilled. Kojo collapsed unconscious. The cursed glow left his eyes. The villagers rushed forward, surrounding him in awe and fear. Nana Ose, voice trembling, said, "This boy has done what no elder dared. He has broken the curse of the river drum." Adisa knelt beside Kojo, clutching his hand. "He is no cursed child," she said firmly. "He is chosen." The villagers bowed their heads, shame burning in their hearts for ever casting him aside. They had seen power, yes, but they had also seen love stronger than any curse. When Kojo awoke days later, weak but alive, the village had changed. They no longer whispered about him as the cursed boy. They called him something new, the keeper who defied the drum. And though the cursed drum lay in ruins, the memory of that night became a story passed down through generations, a tale of fear, of love, of power, and the boy who chose his humanity over darkness.